Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast. And we're here after UFC 295, the morning after, anyways. And we're going to review the action. General thoughts, quick, high level moment of the card. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It wasn't without its low points. It was not without controversy. One judge in particular made a negative name for himself on the night, I will say that much. But we got a cool knockout in the heavyweight fight. We got a cool knockout in the main event, albeit there is some talk about the stoppage, and I'll get into that. We got a kind of disappointing fight between Dern and Andrade. We got a fun fight between Benoit Saint-Denis and Matt Frevola. We got a cool stoppage from Diego Lopez. Urseg Costa was a little bit of a dull one. Godinez versus Ricci was a bit of a dull one. I expected that one to be dull, so I can't really complain. Rembeshki got a pretty cool armbar against Roberts. Sadako Borshut, that was fun. It was good. Jared Gordon versus Mark Madsen was good. Castaneda Kang was pretty good. Van versus Borjas was good. Emmers versus Bazusha was good. So yeah, there was a hot moment there between the Godinez, Ricci, Urseg, Costa fights there, where the action simmered down and got a little bit rough. But at the same time, it was really, really good. Let us talk real quick about the non-fight part of this card. For the main card, Donald Trump showed up with entourage in following Don Jr., Tucker Carlson, Kid Rock, and Dana White. Here's the thing. I am not going to try to convince anyone to change their political views of anything. Frankly, it's not what I'm here to do. And honestly, I've always thought that if you're a hardcore Trumper, you're probably not even listening to me. You're just like, oh, this guy's a lib cuck, and you've gone to get your fix somewhere else. But I will say this, because this always comes up constantly. Hey guys, we're really happy the UFC keeps politics out of sport, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. Because you have fighters talking about religion, the rule it is, which is a political topic. You have fighters talking about the Ukraine-Russia conflict at various points. We've had many sentiments of relatively pro-Palestinian stuff, but without asking for Jews to die, which is good. And of course, there was the long face that still continues to going of pro-Trump fighters. Now, I'll be clear on this. You could argue, theoretically, that fighters have fighters expressing political things is not the UFC doing it. But you have an event like this. Hey guys, former president. I think actually at one point the commentary actually said just President Donald Trump, which I assume I'm not gonna read too much into it. That mistake, whatever, because they did a pretty good job of going former president, 45th president of the United States, etc. So I don't think it was an election denial bit. But you've got the promoter there. You've got attention paid to him that does not have to be paid. Want to be clear? The UFC decides through production who to show, who to give a big sweeping entrance to, who to have Dana White chill with. I'm sorry, this is politics. You can like this politics, I guess, and be consistent. But yeah, the idea that the UFC is like a non-political entity. Just watch this card and just watch this main card. and any of the ones that Trump has attended, to be clear. Any of the ones. And then we'll talk about Judge Brian Miner. Judge Brian Miner is a veteran judge. I looked him up. The name didn't ring a bell necessarily, but he's done UFC cards in the past. He's got MMA judging decisions back to 2010. His earliest fight being Steve Carl versus Brett Cooper at Bellator 15. His first UFC card was Greg Soto versus Nick Oshipshak. That was UFC 118. So this is a veteran judge, and he scored the fight between Tabitha Ricci and Lupi Godinez 30-27 for Ricci. Now, to be clear, a lot of people had it 30-27 Godinez, which is not necessarily the only possible scorecard. I thought the third round had some objectivity to it. Like some people scored it, including the other two judges did score the round for Ricci. I don't agree. We'll get into that more in detail, but like it doesn't have to be a 30-27, I guess is what I'm getting at. And then he also scored the first round of Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern for Dern. To be clear, Dern was outlanded, not by much, but also knocked down. So that is incredibly ridiculous. So that is terrible, and it's bad enough that I don't want to see Brian Miner judge anything ever again. I am normally like really, really forgiving of a judge's first mistake, because mistakes are going to happen. Bad calls are going to be rendered. Things I disagree with are going to happen, and that the fan base as a whole disagrees with. And I would love to hear judges have to explain a dissenting card. I would love that. I would. Because every time they have, it's been really, really terrible. It's we've had Douglas Crosby justify his cards with the worst logic ever. We've had Jeff Mullen, who sadly is the Nevada State Athletic Commission director, or holds a senior position. I don't know if he's the top guy, but like he is referenced on fights in Nevada as a supervising member of the commission. Has also tried to allocate or adjudicate his scoring, and does a terrible job of it, that like he just doesn't score based on the stated scoring criteria. And I would like to find out what judges are like that and get rid of them. But this one is just so bad that I don't know. I don't know what. Well, okay, here we go. The answer that would make me happy is that he just thought Godinez was Ricci, or that he thought for some reason Dern was Andrade. That's like that is literally it. Or he just wrote the score down in the wrong order. Like those are the only two like ideas, and like those are disturbing. So I don't know. There's no hope for this judge. Okay, let's get into the fights. So we had in the main event, obviously UFC 205 title, the vacant title, which Jamal Hill vacated because of his injury. Yuri Procházka had previously vacated because of his injury. They're doing this weird thing like where the fighters are agreeing to vacate this belt, and I don't really know why. Well, I know why. The UFC wants to, have a belt to put up there, and they don't like the word interim, but they'll use it when it suits their purposes. First round I gave to Pereira. I thought he landed some very, very good low kicks. I'm kind of intrigued, actually. Let's have a look at the stats, because I love my stats. Okay, 11 significant strikes apiece. Procházka landed him 27 to 17. Okay, so there were some people that gave this round to Procházka, and I didn't really have a problem with it. He scored a takedown. He got 2 minutes and 17 seconds of top control, but he also was not very active. He did not use his top position well at all. And what really stood out was the fact that Pereira had compromised his leg in the first round. And that's why I gave it to Pereira, because you've got a bad wheel already. You don't check kicks very well at all. I have no doubt that Procházka was going to try to power through it, because he is crazy and has an insane threshold for pain and suffering. And I had no doubt he was going to keep trying, but like he didn't really seem to have an answer. Like he would just get kicked. And like eventually the fact that Yuri is going for a takedown, something he's done once in his entire UFC career up to this point. I know it's only 3 fights, but still, it tells you all you need to know about that. Like, I think even he'd agree that Pereira was winning that round. But yeah, he got the takedown, put him down, and there was a deep guillotine. It was actually a pretty deep guillotine by Pereira, but like eventually got taken down, and like Yuri got to half guard, and then he more or less controlled the rest of the round. But like control is the word. It was like, I don't know, maybe 4 good elbow strikes that Procházka landed in 2 minutes of top control. It's not great. He did have a nice knee when Pereira got up at the end of the round. Then we go into the second round. More low kicks from Pereira. Obviously, keep working those legs. Pound him in the dust. Procházka starts to be a little more aggressive, a little bit more reckless. He's throwing hard. He's got Pereira backing up a little bit. Got Pereira on the wall. Hurts him a little bit against the fence. Walls him. And then Yuri clips him again. But he's way too open. And Pereira drops him. Drops him nicely and then just starts elbowing him in the head. And Yuri's legs go out. Like, clearly, the man is out. Watch the replay. There's a point with the posture, the legs, they all crumple. And he does recover because he's, I think he's conscious by the time the referee actually stepped in to stop the fight, Marc Goddard. But I got to defend Marc Goddard here. I think it's a solid stoppage. He was getting elbowed quite repetitively. He had essentially pulled mount against Pereira, and Pereira was on top of him. That was not going to have a nice ending. I know people are like, well, we just want a definitive stoppage. Do we really need the brain damage associated with that definitive stoppage? Like that's my point. Was it a perfect stoppage by the textbook? No, but it was perfectly fine. And there are a lot of people there are people really litigating Marc Goddard as a referee right now that I don't really understand. I've always thought he was very, very good. Herzog are, in my opinion, the two best referees in the game. Anyways, doesn't mean that they haven't had bad calls, to be clear, but I think they do a good job. Next opponents, I've got Pereira versus Jamal Hill. I mean, that is the only fight that really actually makes sense. He did talk about wanting to fight Israel Adesanya, of course, again at 205. That would make zero sense right now, as he's coming off, of course, losing to Sean Strickland in very convincing fashion. There is really nothing to promote there beyond the personal beef that is kind of always going to be there. Like, you could make that personal beef fight for, like, not for the title at some point down the road. And, as much as I don't particularly like Jamal Hill on a personal level, and even as a fighter, I think he gets a lot of credit for one performance against Glover Teixeira that has led to kind of like ignoring the shortcomings of like all of his other fights, which I'm happy about because I'll probably make some money off of it at some point. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's the fight to make. He did step aside for the belt and did the UFC a solid. And once he's recovered from his Achilles, he'll get there. Now, if Pereira is insistent on fighting before Jamal Hill is ready, because I don't know what the timeline of Jamal Hill. I saw an interview with him that said he was ahead of time schedule with the Achilles, and we'd be back in I don't remember what he said, but it was a fairly short period of time. So I imagine he'll be ready. But if you have to do something else, I guess Magomed Ankalaev is the answer. I am not super interested in a fight between Pereira and Ankalaev, and I don't think the UFC would be. But like, there's no other viable contender right now. Like, the big hope I think for the UFC was that Johnny Walker would just knock Ankalaev out. Speaking of Johnny Walker, him versus Yuri Procházka would be a dope fight. He may be tied up in a fight with Ankalaev. The rematch of there, of course, no contest. But I would much prefer Johnny Walker versus Procházka. Have Pereira wait for Jamal Hill, and Ankalaev is kind of the odd man out. If he wants to fight, we can obviously get him a fight. We can get him a number one contender fight of some kind for a shot after Jamal Hill. But I'm not really... There are no spicy, scintillating fights for Ankalaev, I guess, is the core problem for him. And then Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall for the interim real heavyweight title. Not even real heavyweight title, but like as far as the UFC is concerned, this is the UFC title. Because, okay, it should be the lineal title that Francis Ngannou holds, obviously. But John Jones is only interested in fighting Stipe Miocic and probably will retire after that. He is not going to fight either of these guys, so like just make them the champ. I get it. I of course, we won't get that. We want to promote John Jones as the GOAT. We want to promote John Jones as champion. We want to take Ngannou away as much as possible. So it's I guess it's good promotion, but I find myself incredibly uninterested in what John Jones is doing right now. And it's not an anti-John Jones thing, because I would be really interested in John Jones Aspinall. I would be really interested in John Jones Ngannou. I'd be really interested in John Jones Pavlovich. Like, these are all actually interesting ideas. It's just that the only thing he's going to do is fight Stipe. And I've asked people readily, and please, in the YouTube comments down below or in an answer on the Spotify, I would love to hear your if you're a fan of that fight. I would love to hear why, because I've asked that question on the social media repetitively, and I don't get an answer. I don't get an answer. They're just like, well, it's two great fighters fighting each other. Who cares? It would be two great fighters to have Igor Vovchanchin come out of retirement now and fight against Chuck Liddell. It would also be like depressing as all heck. Now, Stipe versus John Jones is not that, but the idea that like just, well, they were once great. We had a boxing match this weekend between Razor Ruddock and James Toney, and they were both great boxers once upon a time. No one wanted to see that. So that to me is not a reason. It's not. But anyways, let's get to the fight because there's not much to talk about. We had a couple low kicks from Aspinall. Pavlovich had the first big moment. He landed a big right hand. Had Aspinall seeing some stars. Comes in. Aspinall drops him and then just finishes him on the ground. And that was the fight. That's probably why I talk so much about like everything but this fight around this fight, because there's not much to say about the fight. It's really fun to watch, but like in terms of describing it, there's not much to say. I don't have anything really to comment on beyond that. Aspinall versus Jones, like I said, should happen. It's more likely he gets Cyril Gane. And for Pavlovich, I would want him to fight Cyril Gane. But he probably won't, because Gane will probably fight Aspinall for an interim title. And then at that point, I don't really know who Pavlovich gets, because he's already beaten Curtis Blades. And like, there's just no... You could go Jailton Almeida, I guess. I guess that's the only door, actually. Real talk. So yeah, we'll go with that. But like, perfect world. Jones, Aspinall, Pavlovich, Gane. There you go. Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern is a weird case. Also, this was, of course, the fight that Brian Miner screwed up. It didn't matter because Andrade got a finish in the second round. But Dern's striking is just always been kind of weird. But like in this fight particularly is weird. She's recently gotten away from Jason Perillo as her coach, which I think is a bad idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Jason Perillo was doing a fantastic job with her, because he wasn't. Her striking was still incredibly sloppy. But if Jason Perillo can't give you good striking, I don't know if anyone can. And I don't really know what the advantages to not training with Perillo would be. Looking at this fight, this was, in a way, the best Dern striking has ever looked, and in the way, the worst, which is kind of a weird contradictory statement, I know. But Dern's first level, the jab, the right straight, the outside strikes, they had more snap on them than they have ever had, and better form than they have ever had. Now, to be clear, that's not saying much, but it was good. The problem just is that, number one, she's always had this problem, chin up in the air. And number two, when the exchange got lengthened to go beyond like one or two strikes, she got incredibly sloppy, like more sloppy than usual. It's like whoever's coaching her boxing now, the new Jason Perillo, basically like finally got her to throw like a decent form jab, but like with no follow-up and no ability to break off an exchange. There's no reset to her game. And Andrade just kind of just took her to school. Just absolutely took her to school. Dropped her light in the first round, like I said. And then in the second round, she beat her up. She just beat her down. Yeah, this was This was sad. This was multiple knockdowns in the second round. And it's great for Andrade, who has looked bad lately. So, like, congratulations on getting your life in shape. And sadly, it cost you a 3-fight losing streak of, fights that, to be honest, she probably could have won if she looked like this. And next up for her, Carla Esparza's like the only name left. I know that's uninspiring, but that's like it. And then with Mackenzie Dern, I also am very uninspired picking Loma Lukbumi. I don't know. I don't know. Two fighters that are kind of lost in the ether at strawweight right now. Highly marketable. Andrade is a former champion. Mackenzie Dern is exceedingly attractive, which unfortunately is a big part of women's MMA marketing. And also is an incredibly high-level grappler. But getting to that grappling has been a repetitive problem at the high levels. Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit Saint Denis did a great job here. Got taken down a couple times. That's a little bit concerning, but like the man was eating Frevola alive on the feet. Like the kicks were a problem. Frevola ended up shooting into a guillotine choke. Did manage to defuse it, but got reversed. Scrambling. Big slam by Frevola. Scramble back up from Benoit Saint Denis. Ends up chasing Frevola basically across the cage, landing a high kick, and that was it. Benoit Saint Denis is one of the most shocking for real fighters in recent times. When he came in, I'm like the French MMA scene is super underdeveloped. The only success it's really had has been through incredibly stud athletes like a Francis Ngannou or a Cheick Kongo or Cyril Gane. Like guys who are not very good, honestly, when it comes down to it. Although Ngannou is changing my mind, and Gane is good at certain things. But guys who just are like physical beasts in a division of lackluster physical beasting at heavyweight. Whereas like this is lightweight. This is like a place where like it's not like Saint Denis is some kind of insane physical force that's above everybody else. He's a good athlete. Don't get me wrong. He's an impressive athlete. But the fact that he's able to just kind of he's just kind of destroying people. Granted, not at the highest of levels yet, because if we look at his run, and we will, it is Matt Frevola, who's a good action fighter. It's Thiago Moises, who's a tricky little guy. It's Ishmael Bonfim, who I suspect was the beginning of a long-term problem for him. And then basically Cans and Gabriel Miranda and Nicholas Stolze. So there is maybe a tiny bit of overhype, but like the guy is under 30. He's 27 years old. He's got time to develop, probably another good like 5 years. And he's getting scary. Next up, I've got Grant Dawson, because I feel like Benoit Saint Denis might actually make Dawson work for takedowns and not just get out grappled by him, and he'll knock him out. And I'll be clear here. I don't have. This is one of those. I don't have a problem with Grant Dawson as a person. I just find him as a fighter like really dull. I kind of want him removed from the top 20, top 15 lightweights in the world discussion. So that's part of that. For Matt Frevola, I'm just throwing out a fun fight here. Ludovic Klein. I think they would have a fun time. Pat Sabatini, Diego Lopez was the beginning of a ridiculous hype train that I think is going to get derailed. What I mean by this is that Lopez came out here, and he got clipped very momentarily by Pat Sabatini. He brought the chaos to Sabatini, stuffed Sabatini's takedowns, and then just melted him. He took Sabatini's lunch money. And he's had an impressive run. The Mozart Evil fight was way more competitive than anyone really thought it was going to be. He submitted Gavin Tucker, which is cool. And now this. Here is the thing, though, is that like people like, man, Diego Lopez, and this includes commentary and social media. Diego Lopez is a superstar. He's going to go places. There's even people that are like, he's a nightmare matchup for like Islam Makhachev. And they appear to mean it. And I'm just like, guys, you remember that Pat Sabatini got melted by Damon Jackson, right? Like that Pat Sabatini is an incredibly wooden striker who just gets hit super hard. He is the featherweight equivalent to Patrick Cummings, the guy who wrestled with Daniel Cormier in the Olympic trials, and then they brought him in, and he was coming out of a Dunkin' Donuts, I think it was, or some kind of donut place, and he gets into the UFC based on like a locker room beef with Daniel Cormier. That guy, you remember that guy? That guy who like just got hit really, really, really hard by like anything you threw at him. That's Pat Sabatini, just at featherweight, where that's gonna, be an even bigger problem. So let's just hold our hoses. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for Diego Lopez's fights. Dude is a madman, chaos. There will not be a boring fight with Diego Lopez in it, and I appreciate that about him. But he is still the guy who just got bullied by Joe Anderson Brito. So I don't know. He has to do something that I don't expect before I'm really going to get on that hype train, I guess. I don't know. I am late to hype trains. I'll be honest about that. But anyways, Lopez versus the winner of Jonathan Pierce and Joe Anderson Brito, I think is a good idea. And Pat Sabatini, I've got Darren Elkins because, I mean, if he's going to get hit really, 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 really hard, then, like, we might as well do Darren Elkins. Might as well. Before that fight, Trump came in. By the way, Trump actually got to watch 0 Americans win because Pat Sabatini lost, Matt Frivola lost, Mackenzie Dern lost, and there were not Americans in the co-main or the main. Steve Erceg versus Alessandro Costa was underwhelming. The most interesting thing I have in my notes here was that Joe Rogan showed like no understanding of rankings. It was like, hey, Steve Erceg came in and he did one fight and he beat David Dvorak and he's now ranked. It's like, that's incredibly impressive. I'm like, I mean, yes and no, but like he beat a ranked guy. Of course he's ranked. it's also flyweight where like almost everybody is ranked. But anyways, in general, this fight played out largely like I thought it was going to. Although a little bit at a lower pace and a little duller. Erceg wasn't as active as I expected him to be, but like he was active enough. Costa is a really, really, really low output fighter. And what were the outputs actually? I'd be interested to know just how little output there was in this fight. Because flyweight is like, it's a division of output. Yeah, 74 strikes to 54 strikes significantly landed. Erceg had 31 in the first round. He had a pretty active first round, to be honest. Doubled up Costa there and even got a submission attempt during it. But then it kind of, I don't know, it petered out. They went kind of piece for piece with each other in the second round. In the end, Costa got a takedown, but ended up on bottom, like getting reversed. So Erceg showed off like good wrestling, good grappling, like quality skills, but like also just a lack of physicality. And then the third round was largely Erceg with control. He had like 3 minutes of control time, just by going 1 for 5 on takedowns. If you weren't hyped for Erceg before this fight, of course, did absolutely nothing to get you there. I mean, for example, here, Jessica Andrade landed 1 less significant strike than Alessandro Costa in a 2-round fight. And the fight before this, which was kind of dull, saw 98 to 84. And then we're going to get to Borshev later, who landed 143 shots, and Joshua Van, who landed 156 shots. That's the other thing. Joshua Van, Kevin Borges, same weight class. They went from Erceg was the busier fighter in this one, landing 74 strikes. Borges landed 75 significant strikes against Van. And I know numbers do not necessarily tell everything here. I realize that people get angry about that because I talk about who landed more and the box score and the stats, but like they do tell you something. This was by flyweight standards. This was kind of dull. Usyk got the unanimous decision, winning rounds 1 and 3. Costa won round 2. I've got Usyk versus Bruno Silva. I've got Costa versus Clayton Carpenter. Tabitha Ricci versus Lupi Godinez. I picked Ricci to lose, and for a change, I was right. I scored all 3 rounds for Lupi Godinez. The third round went to Ricci on 2 cards, and of course, Brian Miner gave all 3 rounds to Ricci for reasons I don't fully understand. Other than it should be mentioned that maybe he has a thing for the butts and he cannot lie because Ricci and Dern. This essentially this fight went how I thought it would. Ricci is, of course, an atomweight fighting as a strawweight. It has remarkably not held her back all that much, but at the same time, she was facing someone very strong with a solid wrestling background in Godinez, and she couldn't get her down. She, I want to say, went 0 for something. Let's see here. Neither had success on takedowns. Yeah, Ricci went 0 for 6. Godinez actually only tried 1, surprisingly enough. And it's not like Godinez is a masterful striker or whatever, but she's got more horsepower, and it showed. Ricci wasn't really able to hurt her at all. Godinez I've got against Marina Rodriguez. I think that would be a fun fight. And then I've got Ricci's in a really weird spot. So allow me to pull the curtain back here on my matchmaking. Usually what I do is I look up the fighter on Tapology in the ranking section. And I look at who's around them because I think Tapology has the best rankings. They're not perfect. I don't agree with them 100%, but they have the best because like the UFC rankings, number 1 only go to 15 and number 2 are garbage. So anyways, it's the best bet you got. And I'm looking at the people around it, and it's like Ricci, everyone around Ricci is like a bunch of people who are like on losing streaks that realistically losing to Lupi Godinez shouldn't get you a fight with, or people she's already beaten. So like I don't really have anything. And also I think part of this is also my problem with Tabitha Ricci is she's fighting out of her weight class. And as long as there's no atomweight division, I struggle to find a lot of excitement. She's a good fighter. She is. I think her development as a striker has been surprisingly good. I think she's one of the top grapplers in the division. There's a lot of things I could say nice about her. It's just that there is that horsepower lacking that is going to come up against almost virtually any opponent. And that's why I have a hard time getting hyped. She's not the only one. Melissa Martinez is another one who's in like a similar boat to this. Tisha Torres for the longest time was kind of a similar deal. But yeah, it's hard for me to get super excited. Matish Rambeski destroyed Roosevelt Roberts. I'm going to talk about this real quick because this was a talking point. I don't know where this fight happened. They booked Roberts, who's a 6'2" lightweight, on short notice to make 155, and it wasn't going to happen. Either it should have been a catchweight fight, or they should have gotten a featherweight who was going to make the weight okay, or at least a smaller lightweight. I feel bad for Roberts, really. He gets his chance to come back to the UFC after the Ultimate Fighter season. I do think he's a good fighter, but like he's just going to get compacted in this one, and he did. I did think it would kind of go the distance because. Well, no, I did pick Rombowski by submission. Hey, there you go. And he got an armbar here from back mount and broke it down. Rombowski versus Thiago Moises, I think, would be a really fun fight. And Roberts probably just gets Dana White Contender Series fodder, or he gets cut because he missed weight. And again, like on the missed weight thing, I've been thinking about weight cuts a lot lately, and I don't know. There's just a lot of the short notice behavior around weight cuts is not good. And people will say it's not the UFC's fault because the other fighter has to agree. Like Rombowski would have had to agree to a catchweight fight, obviously. But then go with a featherweight. Go with a featherweight. There you go. There's your solution. Do not go to the 6'2" lightweight and be like, hey, we got a short notice fight for you. Can you make the weight? It's insane. He's got to say yes. Like people are like, well, he signed the contract. He's got to say yes. How well has saying no to the UFC gone for like anyone but big stars? The answer is not well. Nazim Sadikov versus Vyacheslav Borshev was really, really fun. Frustrating at the same time because I picked Sadikov to win, and I do think that like he had the ability to win. I really do. If he just got like more takedowns and stuff and like prioritized that more, but like he was willing to stand with Borshev for a lot of the fight, and Borshev was picking him apart, utilizing some very nice kicks, landing low, landing to the body as well. Particularly a problem for Sadikov is dude does the high guard. Like you can't see me, but like he's got the hands up around the face and like super high guard. Body is there to get hit for days. And Borshev was like, hey, I would like to do that. It was a fun, high-paced fight, but like there was that general flaw that like I don't come out of it feeling like Borshev has actually solved issues. It's just Sadikov kind of didn't do the things. In the end, Sadikov did have a 10-8 third or second round on 2 cards. I thought it was kind of marginal. Now, don't get me wrong. I would like this to be a 10-8. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I would like more 10-8 rounds, but I do kind of score the fight based on the trends and influences of real-life judging, which I thought this was kind of borderline. So I had it as a 10-8. So I had Borshev winning 29-28, but the draw 28-28, which 2 judges had, perfectly fine. Sadikov was able to hurt him in the second round and able to do a lot of work, but he also kind of screwed up by going to the ground and not really doing anything with the ground game. Like remarkably not great control from Sarah Longo guy. That's the other thing. Or Longo Weidman, whatever the gym is officially called at this point. Rematch is the thing that makes the most sense. It was a fun fight. We might as well have it again. Jared Gordon versus Mark Madsen. I liked Mark Madsen's dirty boxing game in this one. Very much the hockey fighter. Came out there, was landing some good shots, getting some clinches, working some uppercuts and so on, doing his thing. And yeah. Then Gordon just kind of melted him. Started putting on some kind of wildish shots and just dropped him, finished him. Couple uppercuts, couple of dirty boxing there, a little bit of forearm work, a little bit of forearm shiver. It was good. It was not a bad performance at all from Madsen, but I think it also highlights the fact that he's a 39-year-old fighter who, like, every fight comes out a little bit different and trying to learn and trying to find some things, and it's just too late. Like, it's a shame. He is a phenomenal athlete. He has a good feel for fighting. He has had he gotten into MMA earlier, he'd be a star for Denmark. But he pursued the Olympic dream, and to be clear, I don't blame him. I've said this every time I say like it's a shame that someone didn't pursue MMA. I don't mean it's a shame for them. I mean it's a shame for the sport, and that's what it comes down to. I would give Madsen. I don't know. It's hard to invest in a 39-year-old guy for a next opponent after he's been knocked out. But Jared Gordon versus Ishmael Bonfim seems like a really fun fight that I'd like to see. Kwaiko King versus John Castaneda. All right, this one got a little spicy for me on social media because I scored the first round. I'm kind of interested now. I want to look at the numbers. I scored the first round for King. And people give me crap for that. And I'm looking at the numbers now, and maybe I was smoking the hopium because Castaneda outlanded him 33-18. Actually, the third round was the closest round, volume-wise. I thought my read on the first round, and I really probably should go back and rewatch it, was that they were doing a lot of relatively even striking exchanges that Kang was landing cleaner in. That was my feel. Now, to be clear, maybe that was just me being a little bit frustrated with Castaneda not getting his volume counter game going. Because like what Castaneda likes to do is he likes to feint and like set up a counter. Basically, he's like, all right, you're going to throw at me. I'm going to hit you with 3 back. And then you're going to throw at me. I'm going to hit you with 3 back again. and we're going to just keep doing this, and I'm going to basically triple you up in volume. And he kind of did that, and I wasn't realizing it, I guess. But anyways, Castaneda, although I will say this, Castaneda did in his post-fight say that he thought he lost the first round. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm on to something. The numbers just don't really show for that round. But yeah, that kind of became the fight. Castaneda would be, eating a good shot from Kang, obviously. Kang would be trying to fence with him, set up his jab. And then, Castaneda would kind of, have a little bit of pressure and throw a little bit back. Like, keep it combination based against him. We're going to talk about that with in more detail, I think, with Van versus Borja. The reason I'm not talking about it here is this was a standard John Castaneda fight, is what he does. And it's also a standard Kang fight and what he does, which is he lands a lot of really, really nice, well-timed, well-formed, hard strikes with good speed and good accuracy. But just at the end of the day is a little bit too low output for actually winning or even really pursuing things. He got taken down a couple times by Castaneda. I was a little bit surprised by that. It was a good fight. It was a fun fight. Go check it out. Castaneda versus Victor Henry would be a fight I would be dying for. We're not going to get it because we're going to do the Victor Henry rematch with Basharat after the ball shot. But or was it a ball shot? No, I believe that the whole thing about Victor Henry faking a ball shot is the most ridiculous storyline in MMA right now. But anyways. And then for Kang, I've got Ayman Zahabi because they're two guys who are kind of the same in the sense that they're way too low output for me to really have any faith in. But they're good athletes. They hit hard. Well, Zahabi's not an amazing athlete, but they hit hard. They're decent technicians. It'll be fun to fight. It's two guys who are going to be allowed to fight at their own pace. Joshua Van versus Kevin Borges. Now, Joshua Van kind of did a similar deal to Castaneda, which is why I want to talk about it more here because it's more interesting here. Because Van is a little bit more of an unknown quantity. First round, Van comes out, and Borja throws some big strikes at him early. Doesn't really do much. Van starts to take over, but then Borja, does manage to hurt him. Does manage to start landing some good shots and gets the volume up. Van was very much one and done. He's like, all right, here's my jab. Here's my low kick. Boom. Maybe I'm going to give you the low kick and then the low kick again. Double tap to the calf. But that's really kind of about it. And Borja throwing with way more power. Obviously carried the round. And then in the second and third round, Van starts just smashing the body. Borja has no answer for the body shots, essentially. Nothing. Zero. He's guarding the head. He's doing his best Nazim Sadikov, and he's just getting beat to the body repetitively over and over and over again. And Van just kind of takes over. He starts just, the pressure is there. Everything clicks. The John Castaneda game clicks for him with a lot more body work. And even get some takedowns towards the end. Now, I will say there was a takedown in the third round. I think it was the third round. Where he went for a Kimura / Americana kind of setup near the end. So dumb. Because he had side control. And he's like, no, we're gonna go from a scarf position for a key lock Americana thing. Dude, you're a flyweight. That's not gonna work. And sure enough, it didn't. Borja ended up taking his back, and then Van shook him off. Managed to finish it on top. Managed to get the win. I guess that's at the end of the day what matters. But that was there are some prospect tendencies. There are some can crusher tendencies to Joshua Van that I really need to go away. Also, the slow starts, which are tradition of his. He lost the first round against Jean-Michel Magulov as well, so that's not surprising. But I would like to see that corrected because I don't know. Maybe he needs to get his reads or whatever. But I thought in the first round it was kind of obvious the openings in Borja's defense, and I thought Van knew them because he was. It's not like he started hitting the body in the second round. He just started emphasizing in the second round. But anyways, Joshua Van is an interesting prospect. So is Kevin Borja or Borges. I actually found Borges more interesting after this fight because I thought he held up pretty well. And he actually looks fairly athletic. So I'm kind of interested to see what he can do. Him versus Felipe Dos Santos would be so much fun. And for Van, I've got CJ Vergara. Because Vergara is a guy who generally gets stronger as fight goes on, kind of like Van. He is a super tough guy. He's an aggressive guy, and he'll put the pressure on Van. And I need to see someone who does that semi-well do that before I can really get behind a Van hype train. But I feel like I will be on that hype train at some point. Jamal Amers missed weight and then melted Dennis Bajuka. Called for the 50 Gs, but unfortunately you ain't getting it because you missed weight. Embers versus David Onama will be a super fun fight, and Bajuka gets cannon fodder or cut. Like, he's 0-2. I have no problem with him getting into the fight. He'll probably get 2 more. They signed him to a 4-fight deal normally, and then they let them fight it out. So he probably will get another fight, but he got melted here, and I want to believe that there's something in Bajuka because he's a Weidman Longo guy. Sarah, Weidman, Longo will go with all 3 names. And they produce good talent. But no, I don't. I don't really see what Bajuka's got, and also the whole Dennis the Great nickname. My guy, your first name is Dennis and your last name is Bajuka. There are only 2 ways that this nickname goes. there are only 2 options, and you have picked neither. Anyways, good card, fun card. Like I said, a lot of finishes. Some dull stretches, and I know people are like a little bit unhappy with how the very end of it came, but I thought it was a really good fight card. I think if you missed it, you should go give it a shot. And I'll be back for the next fight card. Kind of curious what it is real quick here. It's a UFC fight night. It is at the Apex. Oh, boy. Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. I'll give you a spoiler. Not very good. Not very good. There are some fights I'm looking forward to. Amanda Ribas versus Luana Pinheiro. That's a relevant fight. Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig is not a terrible fight by any means. I really like Michael Morales, but I don't really like him fighting Jake Matthews. And let's go Lucy Pudilova. That's because she's fighting Eileen Perez, though. I don't like Eileen Perez at all. I don't know. It's not good. Not good. There's some decent action fights, maybe. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it over delivers. Like, I'm always open to the idea of it over delivering, but as much as they say don't judge a book by its cover, like, what else are you supposed to judge it by? Like, I have to judge the card on paper. Just because some like terrible fights on paper end up being really good does not change the fact that they were terrible on paper. Check out the links down below, to the right, to the left, above, wherever it happens to be on your platform of choice for the Discord MMA Simulator, as well as if you are into some gaming stuff. I have gaming stuff. There you go, over on YouTube and on Twitch. Have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed.